Hello and welcome back to Flourish 2019. It's your host, Christina Louise, and I have got a treat for you today. I'm so excited to be talking to Mr. Stewart Pearce, who has mentored and coached big name people all over the world who you would think, really? They have mentors? They have really coaches? Yes, we all need support. And Stewart is here to introduce you to the world of angels, to help you clear up any confusion or any questions or concerns you have about that realm, and to teach you how to access that realm to get unstuck and move forward with your purpose. Thank you, Stewart, for being a part of our show here, Flourish 2019. God bless you and welcome. How are you feeling?
I'm recording late in the evening in London, England, and I've had the most amazing day. So I am full of health, full of joy, full of abundance, and very excited.
I am very excited to feature you too. So we call you today a mentor to the stars and an angelic emissary. Will you share with the viewers what you mean by angelic emissary?
Yeah, I mean, I've always seen spirit. So I've been on this planet for nearly 70 years, and I've always seen, I look younger than I am. And I've always seen spirit. You know, it's a long story, so I won't go into the whole biography of it, but I've always been aware. And when I really fully woke up consciously was in the late 70s, and therefore started to develop the spiritual technology that is me as a spiritual being having a human experience. So working on the whole idea of feeling as the language of the soul, and so finding ways of releasing shadow to accommodate more light and to become more aligned with the quintessence of unity consciousness, and that love is all there is. And that took me through the beginning of the 80s, and in 87, a friend of mine who just opened a crystal store in a wonderful town called Glastonbury in Wiltshire in the United Kingdom. And he said, there's this harmonic convergence. There's this festival during an August weekend in 1987, which was a very unusual astrological configuration. The Mayan people said that 144,000 rainbow light warriors would be awakened by a grand trine opening in the heavens. And so he asked me if I would go down to this wonderful town and sit and read for people, just giving half-hour readings, which I did, because I was quite developing the muscle of being very, very specific about intuitive healings that people could receive. And during the lunch break, I was exhausted by the amount of energy that was taking place. So I went and meditated, because by that time I'd been to India and also worked with Native American people, and they said, go and connect with nature, go and reconnect if you feel exhausted, go and meditate. So I went and sat on the high hill of Glastonbury. Glastonbury is the heart chakra of the world, so it's a very ancient mystical epicenter for world energy. It is the ancient island of Avalon, where Merlin and King Arthur explore their particular stories. So I went and sat on the hill, and as I meditated, I heard extraordinary sounds, high frequency harmonics, and opened my eyes, and in front of me were huge orbs of light. There were 12 huge orbs of light. And I heard in my consciousness, we are the angels of Atlantis, and we come to you to give you a temple of sound healing that you will call the alchemy of voice. So that's how I was chosen, I guess, by 12 beings of light, many of whom we know, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel, and some that we don't, that aren't that familiar, Safkiel, Zadkiel, Hanael. They all come as a communion, as a very unique summit conference, as angels of light. Martin Luther King called them cosmic guardians, and they come to help us through this very unique period of shifting within the consciousness of planet Earth and within the consciousness of our species. So since 1987, I've been teaching the angels of Atlantis.
What do you mean teaching the angels of Atlantis? What does that mean?
Revealing the information that they give to us about the extraordinary transformation that we are moving through during this period, because it has a formulaic quality about it in relation to the great astrogeographical shifts that have taken place on our planet to birth the dawning of Aquarius. I mean, for example, the harmonic convergence, August 15, 16, 17, 1987, a huge grand trine opened in the heavens. Now that heralded the development of the spiritual welfare of our peoples on this planet for 25 years through to the precession of the equinoxes in December the 21st, 2012. So there's a whole math about it, which, for example, our great brother Greg Braden has written about in one of his extraordinary books. So when I talk about the teachings, I'm talking about the information that the angels bring to us. For example, they bring to us that in Atlantis, we lived a 12 helix DNA. They bring to us the information that we have within our bodies dormant cycles of DNA, whereby we're only living a double helix DNA, but we have within us 10 other helix of DNA. So it means we're super beings, and we're only just beginning to discover that. And so they bring information about how we can release shadow, how we can really live the impulse, the breath, and the rhythm of the fact that feeling is the language of the soul, not thinking, but feeling, and how many of us need to modify our behaviors because we're not altogether always working with the greatest grace and the greatest truth and the greatest love and the greatest empathy and the greatest inclusivity and the greatest compassion. That sometimes we choose more gross behaviors. So in brevity, that's what the field of educational witness is all about in relation to these 12 very unique beings. They've been with us for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, you see. They're actually called the Malakim, which means the royal angels in Hebrew. So they go all the way back through the millennia of time. And the information that they provide is that they overlight the 12 Malkai Zedek. Malkai Zedek meaning the priest kings, the priest queens. So this is the intergalactic brotherhood. The white brotherhood is often, or the white brotherhood, the white sisterhood it's often called. Mary is there, Kuan Yin is there, Buddha is there, Jesus is there, Kathumi is there, El Morya is there, Portia is there, Magdalene is there, etc., etc. Saint Germain is there. These 12 beings of light that are, as it were, overseeing the cosmic experiment that you and I are participating in, this extraordinary planet made of all of these unique materials where we're exploring the law of two, the essence of duality.
So I'm receiving this, and I'm open to this only because a few years ago, I was in this really safe mystery school experience, and everybody there was talking about their experiences with angels. And so I said to Spirit, I feel safe in this like weekend long retreat. I feel like I'm safe here. And so if you guys are really out there and you're working for the highest and the best good, I'll invite you in over this weekend. I would like to meet you. And there I was in a Reiki practicum class, and this huge angel standing across the table from me going, don't freak out, don't freak out. My name's Michael. I'm like, I'm freaking out. And would you say, I mean, because you keep saying us. And so one of my questions was going to be, can anybody interact with these beings, or are you somehow special or unique in some way?
No.
And what would we say to the women who, or men and women who are watching this that are like, is this guy nuts? What is he talking about?
Well, you know, I've never, ever, ever been told that I'm nuts because I see angels. Never, ever. And I've been talking about this for over 30 years. So, you know that 85 to 87% of the population of the United States of America believe in angels.
I didn't know that.
88% of the population of Europe, all the varying constituent parts of Europe, believe in angels.
Wow.
Angels have always been with us. It's just as a result of what's taken place over the last 450 years in the development of the left brain consciousness, the cerebral consciousness, the desacralization of nature, that we've moved away from a fundamental belief in angels. So, for example, those people that were living 450, 500 years ago, they were completely aware of the way that angels helped them in their lives. If we go back even further into the Roman school of thought, Greece and Rome being arguably the origins of Western civilization, we know that there are civilizations that precede, such as Atlantis and Lemuria and Sumeria and the Egyptians. But let's take, the Greek-Roman model. The Greeks believed absolutely in angels. They called them demons, which we've demonized. So the church and the temple have taken the idea of the name and have cast darkness into it. So when we hear demons, we go, oh no. But actually, angels in Greece were known as demons or daemons. In Rome, they were known as genies. And the firm belief was that whenever we created something, let's say, for example, if you were Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo, and here were these two men creating these extraordinary works of art or these extraordinary expressions of the scientific mind in the form of Leonardo da Vinci's inventions, they believed that they were being assisted by their guardian angel, who was called a genie, and it was the genie that gave them genius. It's the root of the word genius. They didn't believe that their ego created it. Excuse me, over the last 450 years, we've been introduced to the egoic mind because we've desacralized from the divine feminine. Literally, the thought keepers came in at the beginning of the 17th century and said, all this stuff that you've been believing in for the last 2,500 years, it doesn't exist. No, there is no soul in nature. It is merely a lump of matter hurtling through space. And we believed them. So we unplugged from nature and began to develop the cerebral, rationalized nature of our thinking process and totally ignored the Divine Mother. Now we're beginning to regret that devastating desacralization of the planet on which we live, and we're replugging back, which is why you and I are having this conversation. But yeah, you see, people on our planet, in every single world culture, have always believed in the existence of angels. So for me, there's nothing unusual about angels. And the more feeling is the language of the soul, so the more we tune into the way that our hearts, am I moving you?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, how beautiful.
Yeah, because I've been hearing from spirit. So I've been seeing spirit ever since my parents tell me since I was very young, I was talking about it. But I went through like a ton of neglect and abuse and just a lot of trauma. And so I lost touch with all of that and just threw God out. I didn't want anything to do with God. I didn't want to talk about angels. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust anybody else. And I totally just disregarded all of this. But I've gotten it back through the process of recapitulation, shadow work, everything that you're talking about today over the last 10 or 15 years. And I've been hearing lately just what you're saying. This stuff used to be common knowledge, how our emotions create our diseases in our body, how our bodies are communicating to us, how we are not our body. And this, like you said earlier, technology. It's the first time I've ever heard anybody articulate it that way, but it made absolute sense to me. Can you share a little bit more about that, please?
Well, yes, I mean, biology is biography. And so we have within our bodies, as we know, these powerful energy centers known as databases or chakras. Chakra in Sanskrit means spinning wheel of fire. And these are the biocomputers for the whole of our bodies, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, the four major bodies that we're now creating an holistic flow between. If we see the physical as earth, as the emotional as water, the mental body as air, and the spiritual body as fire, we're bringing earth, water, air, and fire into our bodies, or if you like, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, the four building blocks of creation, start to fuse within our bodies, start to flow within our bodies. So automatically, if we've held part of our body in fear and in trauma, by fear producing shame or denial or guilt or anger or rage and the other very, very dense, low frequency emotions, that the cells begin to mirror those feeling states. And as a result of that, we develop rogue cells that tear away from the collective, that tear away from the inclusivity of every other cell. And the rogue cells become poisoned. We call that cancer. It then moves into metastasis. So, yeah, so within our bodies, we have these extraordinary energies that we're now beginning to understand, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, can be regarded as a very advanced form of spiritual technology.
Beautiful.
And this is what the angels are interfacing with, you see, because they understand what it is to be pure spirit, and that the real core theme of our peoples is that we're drawing spirit into matter, that's why we've chosen to be part of this extraordinary experiment, to bring spirit into matter.
Is that the true duality? It's spirit and matter, and then the experiment is kind of merging them together and becoming one on a physical plane?
Well, there is only duality in this experience of weight, space, and time. As soon as we move into the, beyond the 3 dimensions, as soon as we move into the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th dimension, there is no duality. There is no you and me. We are just one. I mean, that's really difficult. It stretches the muscle of the mind. But yeah, as soon as we move back into soul, we're in complete unity consciousness. The source is an infinitely unfolding creative possibility full of love and joy. There are no dense forms of despair or anger or rage and hatred in the source. We create them here because there is a part of us that is spirit and there's a part of us that is animal. So we're being given this extraordinary paradox or antitheses to really understand how we can begin to hone our consciousness into higher choices, purer choices, more mature choices, so that we cease projecting our negativity onto other people. We take full responsibility, which is really what the Ho'oponopono is about in essence, isn't it? Which is to do with, no, the problem isn't over there, the problem is within me, in the way that, for example, we heard about this sacred shamanic tradition within the Kahuna of Hawaii. They're the Lemurian peoples, you see.
They're what people?
Lemuria.
Oh, Lemuria, yes.
Yeah. So Atlantis, Lemuria, living coexistently, co-creatively, just one in the north and one in the southern hemisphere. Of course, then the planet was the other way around, because at the end times of Atlantis, the huge nuclear explosion that took place literally shifted the axis of the planet 180 degrees. We know that as the Ice Age.
I love you. I love the information that you're bringing, and like I just knew you're going to bring it down to earth and help us all understand. But I don't know. It's like here in the States, the information that I got was like that's like myths and that's fairy tales. So I'm so excited to hear that people are way more open to it than I was back then. And this information that you're bringing through, I feel like, I mean, for those of us that don't know what you're talking about with like Atlantis and Lemuria, can you just talk a little bit more about that, please?
Well, we are living a civilization, aren't we? It's called the civilization that has been in existence for the last 2,500 years. And when we look into our planet, we can actually see that something radical is happening, because in the years that you've lived on this planet, you're looking at behaviors, particularly in central government, and you're not recognizing what's going on. They're very, very different from how they were, say, 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. So in other words, what I'm saying is that we're seeing that the paradigm that we've been living, the establishment force that we've been living, the 5 great establishments of money, religion, health, education, and central government, that these mechanisms that are patriarchally maintained are beginning to shift. So we're seeing a huge action taking place because we know that they were once held in a lack of transparency. Now, this process of civilizations rising and falling has been going on planet Earth for time immemorial. So, for example, if we go back to the two civilizations that I just talked about, Rome rose and fell. Greece rose and fell. Lemuria rose and fell. Atlantis rose and fell. Sumeria rose and fell. Egyptians rose and fell. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these immense periodicities of time where human beings like you and I have been living under a certain thought form created by our predecessors, by our ancestors, and producing an establishment, as we're seeing, that is all about how human beings can either be elicited into the benefit of their own dreams, creating of their own dreams, which is really what began the utopian dream of the United States of America. All we have to do is to read the Constitution to see that. We also now see today that that Constitution is not necessarily being upheld by the majority of what takes place in the Senate. And there are some very extraordinary people on our planet that are actively trying to do something about that at the moment, one of whom I'm working with, and her name is Marianne Williamson, who is running for president. And so Marianne, through all of her extraordinary intelligence, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, is beginning to speak a new paradigm, which is the re-evocation of vital, virtuous, grace-filled substances that we always lived our lives by, but we seem to have unremembered. And so, whether I'm working with actors or public personalities in terms of helping them find their voices, or working with the angels, what I'm literally doing is just stepping forward and allowing my own body to become a vessel for the arousal of the divine feminine, so that we move back into, we take a moral inventory and we really move back into peace, and we move back into love, and we move back into grace, and we move back into empathy, and we move back into inclusivity. Because when we do these things, we look at one another, and although you're over there and I'm over here, we realize that we're sharing something absolutely quintessential about what we are all about as human beings. And then we go and we watch other conversations that other human beings are having, or indeed that we may have had that day, or yesterday, or a month ago, or a year ago, where we've seen ourselves or other people arguing about opinions purely and simply to score ego points, where the substances that I've just talked about are completely marginalized over there, that grace is placed over there, that joy is placed over there, that love is placed, that inclusivity is placed over there. And we see people using their egos to manipulate each other into, I'm the king of the castle and you're the dirty rascal. And what I'm saying in simplicity is that this really needs to cease. The era of data collection is over. We now need to absorb deeply into our bodies the conversations that we've had about being a spiritual person on a human journey, all of the books that we've read. We need to move them away from ideas and literally bring them deep into our bodies so they become experientials that allow ourselves to accommodate more light so that we radiate beauty and grace in each of the conversations that we have, even the really difficult ones, even the challenging ones or the conflicting ones. So what I've done over the years, as a Renaissance man, somebody called me this the other day, is to ask questions. Why? Why was Atlantis significant? Why was Lemuria significant? Why was ancient Egypt significant? And these questions have come up within me because of feeling states. When I first visited Egypt at the age of 15, which is, over 50 years ago, I was absolutely spellbound by what I felt because I knew it. I knew I'd been there before, but I didn't know how to begin to articulate that. Everywhere that I went, I could not speak Arabic, but I recognized the temples and I recognized the extraordinary effervescence of energy that took place in my being. So I've been visiting for 50 years, and for the last, 12, 13 years, I've been running retreats twice a year there, where people come to explore a way of releasing the shadow and moving towards a sense of their own divinity, of really awakening the I am presence, of awakening their divine blueprint, so that joy and love and grace and humility and justice and truth become living, sustainable energies. So sometimes people come and they have cancer, and because of the rituals that we do, they come back to their lives in America, in the United States, or in Europe, and they go to their oncologists, and their oncologist says, but you have no cancer in your body. And the person, normally a lady, says, yes, I know, I've been working on healing it. So the spiritual technology that I was talking about earlier is awakened by the light-filled temples of these extraordinary epicenters, these astrogeographical alignments on planet Earth. This is an amazing time to be alive. We're very lucky.
We are. We are very lucky that we could just hop on a plane and be there with you, or take advantage of your free gift today and get more and more of what you're saying, be able to connect with each other. You're in the UK, I'm in the US, people are watching all over the world today. And this awakening and this ascension is happening. And I'm so grateful that you're reminding even me of that, because I can get, right, with producing a show like this, it's so easy to get stuck in the masculine structure, to-do list, everything that needs to get done, and forgetting like the bigger picture here. And you really said it really beautifully. And it was even the lead in to the show, and the invitation to everybody watching was, you've been studying for a really long time, and that's really great. But let's start practicing now. And that's what Flourish 2019 is. It's a safe place, super supportive place for all these audience members to come in and receive guidance, to receive support, and to not like really learn anything, but to integrate, absorb just the energy of our voices and the information that you're bringing through. And you talk a lot about divine feminine and the divine mother, and how we turned away from that and we're starting to come back in. And you actually talk about the feminine being the leader. So I'd like you to share a little bit more about what that all means for us.
Sorry, the feminine being the leader?
Yeah. Feminine leadership. I thought I saw something
I see
about
what you
that
mean.
earlier.
Female leadership, yes. Well, I mean, all we have to do is go online. If you go, because the summer's here, and you go to all the major university campuses over the year, online, and you see that in virtually every single one of them, there is a female leadership conference taking place. I mean, every single university that is significant on our planet. So this isn't something that I've stimulated. This is something that I'm observing. So it just so happens that my destiny as an awakened consciousness has always drawn women to me. I love women. I also love men, but I love women because I find women so much easier. The creativity, the sensitivity, the fact that I was a very challenged child, educationally speaking, because I'm a synesthete. This we didn't really understand in post-war Europe.
What was that word you used?
A synesthete, synesthesia. It's a crossover of the senses. So it's when senses literally become controverted, and as a result of that, for example, I see sound as well as hearing sound. I see sound. So as a child, I was completely bewildered by the waves of energy that were sound. So I would see, coming out of somebody or emerging from an orchestra, waves of colored sound, and I would float on them as a child. But what this also meant was that when it came to the printed word, I had great difficulty reading the printed word because it was stuck, it was static, it was concretized on the page, and I was used to being in flow. Fortunately, my mother was immensely intuitive and was really my spiritual guardian all the way through that period, because I found it very difficult to be at school and was very traumatized by the whole thing. So I self-muted for about 2 years, and my brother, who's older than I, spoke for me. But my mother said, Stewart is always humming. Let's put him into a church choir. So I was put into a church choir. And of course, I couldn't read the hymnal or the prayer book that was in front of me. I would just copy the other boys, and I was really good at parroting people. And then suddenly I realized that the notes that I were looking at were a landscape, and they were associated with the quality of energy that I saw in the waves of sound. And then I began reading through singing. So I learned to read through song, not through speech. And then I was able to speak it. And then, lo and behold, I became one of the world's leading voice coaches. I mean, wow, interesting. But from a position, our disadvantages create crises, and crises equals opportunity. So we begin to grow and understand how amazing we are through all of the restraints, through all of the weaknesses, through all of the difficulties, through all of the challenges. If we can alchemicalize them, we become truly remarkable people. And therefore we begin to shine our light as the super beings that we are, creating change wherever we go in relation to the transformation of hatred into love. So many of our brothers and sisters are committed to the conviction of hatred, and it has a strong force. It's a force equalizer. So what we need to do is to bring in the conviction of love, not by hating them, but by loving them, so that we begin to spread the message of love and infect people positively with love. That's why I keep using the word experience, because the left brain has led us to this cerebralization of idea. And hopefully, as I speak, you're feeling that these ideas that I'm sharing are actually their experiences. I feel them really, really deeply in my body. So the way that I use my voice, as you can see, it's not here in my head, I don't talk in my head about these ideas. What happens is that my voice drops into my body so that you can feel the warmth and the resonance of the emotional world that's going on deep within my belly and deep within my heart. I'm getting more and more excited about what I'm talking about.
Thank you for that illustration. That was really powerful. I felt the difference in the frequency, and I like how you articulated, and I thought, I want to make sure I'm speaking from my belly. I want to make sure I'm speaking from my center and not up in my head. And so I'll be watching for that as time moves on for me.
So that's a particular skill that I have, to introduce everybody to their note, that we each have a note. And when we sound that note, we sing the song of our soul. And so, well, where is that note? Well, if you go to your heart, if words arise from the heart, they enter the heart. If words arise from the tongue alone, they don't pass beyond the ears. So if we really go into the heart, if we're sounding from the heart, we find the middle of our range. If we see the range of our voices as being corresponding within the spinal column, that when you come to the middle, right in your heart, there's almost equal measure between there and here and there and the base of the pelvis or the base of the spine. So the spine is really, really powerful in relation to this, because the spine is really the pranic cord. Through the center of the spine flows all the neural activity of your body. So if the spine is bent, your brain is bent. It's difficult to think clearly. But if your spine is aligned, the pranic cord opens up. Now, if we see the pranic cord as our vocal range, if we're really sounding through our hearts, then if words arise from the heart, we feel as though we're really experiencing heartfelt. So if I said to you, come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove. It's very different from, come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove. But having taught this for many, many years, I go around the Western world, and actually I hear everybody living in their heads, because this is the way that we've been conditioned and educated and socialized. Everybody, and I mean, particularly America, everybody gets very nasal. And here we are. I mean, you know what I'm saying? In New York City, it's like whatever, it's like. And what I'm doing is I'm bringing people into their hearts. And wherever I work this in relation to female leadership, or in relation to the actors that I work with, or some of the amazingly talented and powerful people that I work with, they all always say to me, oh my God, when you speak like this, I feel so warmed and caressed by what you're saying. It's a way into our integrity, you see.
I do see. I feel it. I don't really see it, but I feel it. And so I want to say I see the difference. And so what are some how do we do that? How do we find our middle? What are some of these tips that you have for getting unstuck and flowing in your purpose that we want to make sure that we cover in our time together today?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to download an MP3 that I've made called Awakening, which can be found really easily on the angelsofatlantis.com. Because to really honor your question, what I really need to do is to take us into a sonic meditation, and that will take time, and that time right now we don't have. But by honoring the recording that I've just spoken about, Awakening, we can actually find a way of really tuning into what the Romans called our persona, which is at the root of the word personality. And the persona in Latin means per, through, sona, sound. So that the whole conviction of who we are is communicated through our sound. Because they believed, you see, that sound was at the core of creation. Like all early cultures believed that sound is at the core of creation.
Mm-hmm.
We've slightly moved away from that belief because we're surrounded by noise, the noise of the machines. But if you go back 450 years ago, there wasn't that noise because the machines did not exist. And so, for example, a Lord Mayor of London in 1597, as he visited Shakespeare's Globe Theatre that was there at that time, which was a project that I got involved in, it was the master of voice there for about 12 years, said, all speech is decorated silence. So where today do you go to find silence? Well, in the middle of the countryside, out at sea, on the top of a mountain. It's really difficult to find stillness because we're surrounded by noise, whether it's the noise in the machines or the noise of this, because this is always going, shall I, and it's mostly to do with shall I, shan't I, will I, won't I? The doing,
Right.
doing, because that's the way that we've been educated and socialized. But if we come back into being and finding stillness through breath, because the breath is the instrument, is the energy, is the inspirational root that awakens the sound. If we tune into breath and we find our note, what happens afterwards is that we feel this iridescent stillness moving through us. So we feel harmonic. We feel a sense of our own sovereignty. We feel calm, commanding, and conscious. And so we work from the very center of our beings, because that's what being harmonic means. We find the middle of something, and we, whether it's an inanimate object or a human being or a tree, we find the middle of it. You find its golden mean. You find its note. You find its Aristotelian point of stillness, the meeting between the yin and the yang. Yeah.
Yeah, this is such good stuff, and I'm glad that you mentioned the meditation. And it's your free gift. So you can take this journey, go even deeper with Stewart today by clicking the link below this video and getting it into your head. Like, I am so pumped. I'm so excited, and I'm so sorry that we're out of time because I'm just like lapping this up. I'm really appreciating my experience with you, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but is there any other information that any of these angelic beings around us now want us to know?
Well, it just so happens that sitting next to me are the 5 books that I've written that you can easily find through Amazon, and an oracle of the angels of Atlantis that has become an international bestseller that I created for the angels. It's a very, very ancient oracle. It's been on our planet for thousands of years. But of course, as you were saying earlier, what is this thing about angels? What is this thing about Atlantis? In other words, we've unremembered. We haven't forgotten. because I notice that when I say these things, as with yourself, you know, this is sort of, some of the information is new for you, but you feel the veracity in it. You feel the truth in it. So this oracle is designed to help us awaken those codons of DNA in our bodies that are dormant. There are 44 cards because we have 44 dormant codons. So what I'm going to do is I've shuffled them. I'm going to divide the pile into two, and then I'm going to choose, in dividing the pile into two, I'm going to choose the top card, which is going to be the card for, can you see this?
No, back it up a little bit. Just back up a little bit.
It's Archangel Uriel.
Yes, now we can see it. Abundance, Uriel.
It's Archangel Uriel. This orb is Uriel, because remember, the angels came to me as orbs. So in ancient Christian mysticism, angels were always seen as orbs of light or great beams of light. It's quite recent that they become human beings with wings. And the card has a beautiful tree on it. Uriel is the great companion, the great friend. And the tree is the oak tree, and at the bottom is abundance. So in other words, the teaching for your community and all that you are attempting to do is bringing extraordinary abundance into everybody's lives. They're feeling expansion, they're feeling freedom, they're feeling that thought creates reality and feeling actualizes the manifestation, so that they're expanding into miracle-mindedness. They're full of abundance, which is energy that comes to us from the source.
Thank you so much.
And Uriel, interestingly, is one of the four guardian angels. We have Uriel, Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael. And Uriel is the governor of the south and the earth element. And then as you go around the wheel, Gabriel is the governor of the west and the water element. Raphael is the governor of the air and the north, you know, the governor of the north and the air element, and Michael is the governor of the east and the fire element. So they've always been known as these four cardinal angels that bring amazing loving witness to our lives. And Uriel came through for you because here we are talking about bringing spirit into matter. We talk so often about ascension, and actually really what we're doing is descending to ascend. We're coming deep into our bodies and informing ourselves. So there's love to you and love to all the wonderful people that listen into this interesting conversation that we've had. And if anybody wants any more information, please go to www.theangelsofatlantis.com.
Yes, and that's right here on the page where you're watching this video. And can you tell us the name of those cards one more time, just in case anybody wants to grab a deck for themselves like I do today? What are they called?
The Angels of Atlantis Oracle.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Which is
like
also an app.
Oh, it's an app too.
Yay! I'm so thrilled. It's an app. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And then it turns to a golden orb, and we click the golden orb, and you'll hear a bell ring, and there is Sandalphon, the planet, the guardian of the planet, and the card is evolution. So again, it's all about planetary textures of the earth and how evolution is taking place, because our whole conversation has been about evolution.
Yes, it certainly has. So that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you again. God bless you. Thank you
Namaste.
all for Namaste. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed your experience. Take advantage of Stewart's free gift. It's the link right below this video. All you have to do is enter your name and your email address, and he'll send you that life-transforming, maybe even DNA evolving meditation that he was talking about earlier today. God bless you. Thank you again, Stewart. Such a joy.
Bye.
And I'll see you guys all tomorrow with another edition of Flourish 2019.